So there's this massive legal showdown happening right now between the tech giant Meta and India's Supreme Court. And at the heart of it all is a pretty simple but really profound question. What is your data actually worth? And maybe more importantly, who's cashing in on it? Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's jump right into the deep end, to the dramatic climax of this whole story. The date is February 3rd, and we're inside India's highest court. Now, this wasn't just some boring legal hearing. No, this was a moment that could totally shake up how big tech does business, not just in India, but maybe everywhere.
And wow, the court did not hold back. They sent this incredibly powerful signal. Think about it. This idea that for years, we the users have just been seen as a silent resource. Raw material to be mined for cash. The court is basically saying, nope, that's not going to fly anymore. The whole game is changing. At the core of this whole thing, you've got these two totally different ways of looking at your data. On one hand, you have Meta, who for years has basically said, oh, your data, that's just exhaust. A harmless byproduct of using our services. No big deal. But the court, they're starting to look at it and say, wait a second, this doesn't look like exhaust. This looks like a valuable asset being taken without fair pay. And they're going even deeper. They're questioning the whole idea of consent. I mean, think about it. When a single company basically runs the show, can you really give your consent freely? Or is that I agree button you click just, well, a choice you're forced to make? Because honestly, what's the alternative? So how did we even get here? How did this blow up into a Supreme Court showdown? Well, to understand that, we got to rewind the clock a bit, back to 2021. It all kicked off with one single policy update that really planted the seeds for this whole conflict. Okay, so this is where the trouble really started. WhatsApp pushed out this new privacy policy, and it was mandatory. The deal was basically this. Either you agree to share a lot more of your data with the mothership, Meta, or you're out. You can't use the app anymore. For hundreds of millions of people, that was a pretty tough spot to be in. Right away, this whole take it or leave it thing set off alarm bells for regulators. India's competition watchdog jumped in and said, hold on a minute. They argued that for most people in India, just quitting WhatsApp, that's not a real choice. It's too essential. And because of that, this policy was a straight-up abuse of Meta's dominant position in the market. And that one complaint, it kicked off this huge legal saga that's been climbing its way up through the Indian court system for years now. And with every single step up that ladder, the stakes just got higher and higher. So let's quickly walk through that journey. It basically happened in 3 stages. First, the Competition Commission of India, or the CCI, said, yep, Meta's guilty. So Meta appealed to the next court up, the NCLAT. And when they weren't happy with that outcome, they took it to the final boss, the Supreme Court, which is how we got to where we are today. So that first ruling from the CCI, it came with a penalty. We're talking about $25 million. That was really the first time Meta faced a real, tangible consequence for this policy. Now, let's be real. For a company the size of Meta, a company worth over $1 trillion, $25 million it's couch cushion money, it's nothing. But the money wasn't the point. The real impact was the message it sent. It was a warning shot across the bow, a clear signal that the government in India was paying very, very close attention. So they go to the next court up, and the verdict is kind of mixed. The court said, yeah, you abused your position, and yeah, you still have to pay the fine. But, and this is a huge but, it got rid of the toughest penalty, which was a 5-year ban on Meta sharing your data for advertising. That was a big win for Meta's business model, at least for a little while. But Meta wasn't satisfied, so they pushed it all the way to the Supreme Court. And this, right here, is where everything changes. The whole conversation, the whole argument, it starts to pivot. It moves away from just being about privacy and lands on something totally different, property. And the Chief Justice, he just nailed it. He said that for people in India, trying to opt out of WhatsApp is basically like trying to opt out of the country. I mean, what a powerful way to put it. He's talking about that network effect trap, right? Where a platform gets so big and so essential that you literally can't leave even if you wanted to. See, for years and years, this whole debate has been about one thing, privacy. Your right to control your personal info, to keep it secret if you want. India even has all these new laws about data protection. The whole conversation was framed around privacy. And then one of the justices asks this question that just flips the whole script. It was a total game changer. He looked past the right to privacy and asked a much simpler but much more profound question. Okay, but what is all this information actually worth?
And just like that, this radical new idea enters the courtroom. Your data isn't just something to be kept private, it's property. The logic is actually pretty straightforward. If Meta is taking your digital life, your clicks, your likes, your conversations, and turning it into billions of dollars, shouldn't you get a piece of that action? After all, it's your stuff. So this brand new way of thinking that your data is a valuable asset that you own, that brings us full circle, right back to where we started, the court's huge ultimatum for Meta. And it wasn't just the judges thinking this way. The government's own lawyer basically said the same thing. You've heard that old line, right? If you're not paying for the product, you are the product. Well, it feels like we're seeing a real exhaustion with that whole business model, and it's coming from the very top. And I love this part. The Chief Justice really brought it all back down to earth. He moved away from all the high-level legal talk and asked a really practical question. He basically said, could a domestic helper truly understand these super complicated, cleverly written terms and conditions? Is that real consent, or is it just taking advantage of confusion? And all of that builds up to this final, dramatic moment. The court has drawn a crystal clear line in the sand. They told Meta, you either formally promise to stop sharing this data right now, or your case is getting tossed out. And if that happens, the court will impose its own very strict conditions. The ball is officially in Meta's court. So where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us with this huge question that's way bigger than just one court case in India. This really affects every single one of us. Our digital lives are creating unimaginable wealth, and we all have to start asking, if our data is the product that's making all this money, who really gets to own the profit?